Good evening. Welcome to the PoliticIt podcast. Tonight we have Jill Koford with us, and Jill has just signed up to run again for District 10.
I have.
Right?
Yeah, it's great to be here.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and you know that was a squeaker last year. It's just so close.
It was close. 500 votes.
Yeah.
We worked really hard, but back at it again.
Yeah, I was glad to see that you persevered with that. So why don't we start just you telling people a little bit about you?
Okay. Let's see. I grew up in Ogden, Utah. Went to Weber High School. Went to
Go Warriors.
Go Warriors, right? Went to Weber State, got my degree in English there. My husband and I decided to stay in Utah and raise our family here. I have 3 amazing kiddos, and they're all in Ogden. My 2 youngest are going to Weber State. My oldest daughter is actually working on her master's in teaching.
Oh, that's cool.
Which I'm really proud because
is she teaching now or just going to get her master's and then start?
Yeah, she's going to get her master's. It's a master's of arts in teaching. It's a credential program at the same time. She felt like she could do the master's and the credential and knock it out and then start teaching. So
what is the credential called?
It's a master's of arts in teaching.
Of arts and teaching,
yeah.
Okay.
Which is actually the same master's that I got.
Oh.
So super proud of her.
Is she at Weber too?
She is at Western Governors for her master's right now.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
But so I've been involved in county politics for a long time. I've been a state delegate, county delegate, in legislative district leadership, party secretary. I've done a few things in the county party. Kind of one of those people that feels like we have to be involved civically to do something, to see change. And that's what led me to decide to run 2 years ago. You know, pretty much if you're going to start complaining about things, it's time to put your money where your mouth is and try to do something about it.
So your district is actually, I think, the only one in Weber County that's held by a Democrat right now.
I think it's the only one outside of Salt Lake County that's held by a Democrat right now.
So let's allow people to understand what separates you from the policies of the Democrats.
Well, I think, that's an easy question for me, because I think if you look at where our country has gone, where the Biden administration has taken us, spend, inflation, which is hitting people in Utah very hard. Yeah. Our families are struggling because of this constant spending. And then when you look at those liberal policies of the DC Democrats, when it comes to our kids, when it comes to education, when it comes to the border, when it comes to so many of our primary rights that are guaranteed in our Constitution, I think it's a very clear line in the sand between DC politics and where conservative values and principles take us. So, for me, cutting taxes, cutting spending, those are key issues that I think we need to address in this state. And we can jump right in and talk a little bit.
Oh, yeah, let's do.
So, if you look at our state budget over the last 5 years, it's nearly doubled. In 2019, it was about a $7 billion budget. Today, our budget is close to $14 billion. I'd love to get those kind of returns on my investments, John.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that'd be averaging 15% a year because it nearly doubled in those 5 years. What are we spending that money on? And that hits our residents where it counts, right? Those are taxpayer dollars. I think it's time for us to really evaluate what we're spending those things on, where the extra appropriations are going, where one-time appropriations are going. If the state as a whole even just cut back 10%, that would cut, $1 billion off the state budget. Just a 10% cut, and that would still put us more than where we were 2 years ago in terms of the kind of money that we're spending. And I think our economy is slowing. When you look at the tax dollars that are coming in on sales tax, it's flat right now. That tells me that people are feeling it in their pocketbooks. They're not spending, and families, they just don't have that discretionary money. So what can we do on a state level to bring that back? I think that's primary, number one.
Right.
And we talk a lot about tax cuts in Utah. Our legislature has done a great job with tax cuts. Maybe there's a way to even go further if we can cut back that spending, roll that back a little bit, and give our residents a tax cut as well.
Right. So what kinds of plans do you have in terms of policy things that kind of touch your soul, or that you're excited about?
Absolutely. So taxes are one thing. I think that's a big thing for me. We just talked a lot about that. Another thing is education. I mentioned my daughter is getting her Master's of Arts in Teaching. I have a Master's of Arts in Teaching. Our children are our future. What are we doing to invest in their education? How are we empowering our parents to choose the best education for their kids? And we made great strides last year in the legislature, right, with the passing of the Fits-All Scholarship. That's something that I am 100% in support of. All three of my children had very different paths in their educational careers in K through 12. They're different people. They learn in different ways. We should be empowering parents to be able to differentiate the education of their children. So the Fits-All Scholarship, I think, is a good start. I think we can go further with that. The person that currently holds the seat in District 10 is not in favor of school choice. And I think that hurts some of our most vulnerable populations in Ogden. With the Fits-All Scholarship and the way it's designed right now, as you well know, that opens up opportunities to people.
Well, what's surprising to me is our school board representative actually has gone to a lot of the minority congregations, church congregations, and talked a lot about school choice and other things. And what amazed me is that was an audience that accepted it very, very well, that actually wants to participate in that wants to create some micro schools to help their kids.
Yeah.
And I think those are the kids that are struggling the most
100%,
in school.
Right. I had great conversations during the last cycle with some of our local educators who have kids in their schools that are on scholarship. And it's a private school in Ogden. They'll continue to scholarship these students, but for them it was just a way to give even more back to their community if that money could be transported, to their school. So what a great thing. And I think the more that we can invest and protect our kids, the better off we'll be.
So let's take a break and then we'll come right back. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right.
Previously on PoliticIt.
Yeah, that's one thing that's bothered me a lot. It seems like I don't think there's anybody that doesn't want to protect the planet.
Exactly, right.
But it seems like what's going on right now is that we got a war on fossil fuel. We've got a war on the economy, right? And that to me doesn't really balance with this idea that we want to preserve the planet and do the right thing as stewards.
So, John, I think what happens is we let this science question get in the way. So Republicans hear this question, is the climate changing and has man influenced it? And what we really hear is, why won't you accept our crazy ideas? And so we push back on it.
Right.
And the reality of it is, Republicans, just like Democrats, care deeply about leaving this earth better than we found it. And we've got to do a better job of articulating our solutions, because the solutions currently on the table, all you have to do is look at Europe. Europe right now is buying very, very dirty fuel from an enemy at very high prices. So a small little room, not much bigger, smaller than this room that we're in right now, would cost $1,000 to heat for the winter. Well, that's unsustainable. And the power won't stay on. And they're buying their fuel from an enemy. And the United States is headed down that same trajectory. So it's no wonder that we push back on that. And what we need to do is step up and say, look, no, we care. Here are our ideas. They don't destroy the economy. They keep prices reliable and affordable, and they're clean as well.
Welcome back. We're here with Jill Koford. And Jill, it's a pleasure to have you here. But we were talking a little bit about kind of you and what your passion is. So what would you say are the hot button local issues?
I think everybody's probably talking about property taxes, John, and how much they're paying. And those are those kitchen table talk conversations,
right,
that are.
So a lot of the property tax comes locally. So what can you do at the state level?
You're absolutely right. Those are decided in our truth and taxation hearings on the local level. But until the state evaluates how exactly that's calculated, if it's calculated purely on value, which I'm not sure that that's helping people, but the state can address that, how that calculation is made. So yes, it's assessed, it's collected on a local level. A lot of those levies are determined on a local level, but the state has the overriding yes or no, this is how we're going to attribute that value. When properties were increasing at 30% during COVID, you remember
Right.
that, home values were going through the roof. Our system of taxation is supposed to have taxes go down as values go up.
Yeah, so the rates, the revenue is supposed to be neutral.
It is
over that,
supposed to be
right?
revenue neutral. But what we found is that when you have property values increasing at 30%, there is a direct correlation with that increase. It doesn't work when you have a spike like that. And certainly housing prices are softening a little bit, but that's another issue that people are talking about. We want our kids to live here. I talked to you about my 3 adultish children, right? I want them to have homes here. I want them to live in Utah. We love Utah. We play here, we work here. This is the place where I want to see my kids and hopefully someday my grandkids live. And how are they going to afford a house? I know, the governor has talked about housing. I think it's a priority this year in the Senate in their 2024. So what does that mean? How do we impact the price of housing? And when
I hear those discussions a lot, and I think you mentioned this a little earlier, but it bothers me somewhat because I'm big on Bastiat and the proper role of government, right?
Yeah.
And so does that bother you? I mean,
yes, it does. And the governor would like us to get into housing in terms of low interest loans. And I'm not sure that is the proper role of government. But what is the proper role of government are our infrastructure. Our utilities are dedicated to the government, right? So when a house is being developed right now in Utah, it costs about $80,000 per building lot to improve that lot. What does that mean? That means curb, gutter, sidewalk, road, underground utilities.
And water.
Water, sewer, all of that, right? Your power lines to your house. $80,000 on a pretty average sized lot. Well, what if there was a way for the proper role of government to step in, because all of those utilities get dedicated to the city at the end of the day? That's something that may make sense in the budget to take care of. Instead of offering more housing programs, things that are outside of the proper role of government, why aren't we looking for ways to lower the burden on builders in terms of the building permit? That's $20,000. You want to lower house prices? There's $80,000 in utilities and $20,000 in building permits that maybe we ought to evaluate where that money's going and if there's a better way to fund that. That eases the burden on that first-time home buyer. Can you imagine if you took the average $400,000 house and immediately took off $100,000?
Now all of a sudden it's affordable.
Now all of a sudden it's affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of your other ideas? I mean, you really, I must say, you did an excellent job campaigning last time, and I thought you ran a very, very good campaign. And there might be things to get your message out better, but you're very capable, and I think you project a good image. You project a very conservative viewpoint on things. So how can you get people to understand that?
Do you know, John, for me, at the end of the day, it comes to some very simple things. The role of government is to protect our rights, which come from God, first and foremost, right? And the role of government is not to be the answer to everything. It's to get out of the way, right? So if we can protect those rights as elected officials, if we can encourage self-reliance, if we can encourage people to stand on their own 2 feet and chase their dreams, that's where innovation comes from. That's how we grow the American dream, how we grow opportunities for all people. And it's that government does less so the people can do more. And if I were to summarize everything in a couple of things, I think that would be it.
That's excellent. We really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
And
so much.
if you make another pitch.
Oh, well, I'm Jill Koford. I would love to get to know each and every one of you, to know what's important to you, to take your voice to the state capitol and to represent you. Thanks.
Excellent. And we'll see you guys next week.